Hello and welcome to another Lore Report with myself Dante.
And myself Kaz.
Today we're looking into one of the more fascinating images to come out of the Sombra origin story, the information web that Sombra projects showing how she sees the big players in the world and the links between them. Considering her hacking skills, you can bet this is almost certainly the most accurate interpretation we've seen to date. This was originally going to be one video, but the more we looked into it, the more we found. So this is now part 1 of a 2-parter.
Before we start, it's worth pointing out that the web in the origin story is not the only place this was shown. At the Overwatch What's New panel, Michael Chu accidentally skipped past the slide, and it was shown up on the big screen for a few seconds. We didn't get a great look at it, but what we did see was a little more info above the LumeriCo logo, so we'll be covering both versions of the web throughout. The other key point that will be vital throughout our examination is that each line seems to represent either a friendship, a familial link, or some kind of business arrangement. They do not seem to represent enemies. This is most obvious when you look around the Overwatch section, as you already know their general level of friendliness. You also get clusters, where we assume Sombra sees something as a subset of something else. Again, Overwatch is a good example of this, but also Katya Volskaya and her daughter.
There's a lot of information to run through on this web, so to try and keep things concise, we're going to focus on the major nodes and work our way around. From left to right, we'll kick off with LumeriCo, a company we've seen in considerably more detail as of late due to the Sombra ARG. Coming off this node are 4 members of Los Muertos, one of whom is unknown at this point. I think we're safe in assuming these are leaders or major players known to Sombra, and they look very similar to one seen in Hero. With one being unknown, this could demonstrate her disconnect from the gang in recent years, showing she really did only use their name when attacking LumeriCo. Or Los Muertos could have a hidden leader even she doesn't know the identity of. The fact that they're connected to LumeriCo by a line indicates that a business relationship is in play, which ties into the fact they appear to be actively supporting LumeriCo in game and in Hero to some extent, a far cry from freedom fighters they purport to be. Opposite this we have Guillermo Portero, the recently disgraced head of LumeriCo and former president of Mexico. What's most interesting about this cluster is that Portero has a link to the only major node that we can see that isn't a direct spoke of the conspiracy symbol, though we can't make out what it is. We know he was contacted by Vishkar, who are conspicuous by their absence here, but that doesn't look like their logo. There are also a couple of additional minor nodes going upwards from both LumeriCo and Portero. Clearly there is much more in the top half of this web we are yet to see.
The big link we can see clearly though runs down to Volskaya Industries, the saviours of Russia and producers of Sciatagor mechs. We've not been made aware of any link of any kind between Limera Co and Volskaya, but Sombra clearly believes it exists. Given the very different industries of the two megacorps, it's difficult to find common ground, even more so when we look at their history. Volskaya would seem to be the older, given they were around in the first crisis, whereas LumeriCo looks like it sprang up after Portero was finished with his term of being Mexican president, a good few years after the war. This puts paid to the idea that LumeriCo is some kind of power supply to Volskaya, but I suppose that may be possible for the new mechs. It's a difficult call to make given the political and geographical divide between the two. What do you guys think the link could be? Katya, like Guillermo, is obviously the largest immediate connection to Volskaya as the owner and CEO of Volskaya Industries. To her upper left is her daughter, who Sombra used to apply some leverage to her. There's also the face of a man who we don't recognise. Could be her daughter's father, but the icons are separate and there's no line between them. This guy then has his own connection to 2 small nodes that are very difficult to make out. One looks like it says the number 30 with a bunch of very tiny text. The other could be a map of some kind, but that's best guess. Really hard to make out, so we'd appreciate your thoughts here.
As we discovered at BlizzCon through the Infiltration short, Katya has secretly been working with an Omnic or Omnic organisation to build the next generation of technologically advanced mechs. This is the Omnic we see to the bottom right of her, with the 5-dot pattern on his forehead. We know next to nothing about this guy, but the line down to him connects to what looks like a blueprint of the new mechs, which then of course connects back up directly to Volskaya itself. A roundabout way of saying Katya makes the contact, the Omnic provides the tech, and the tech goes into the mechs to be built by Volskaya, all without Volskaya Industries or Russia knowing. The cluster below the mech consists of what is obviously the core she was given by the Omnic, and also what could be, although it's hard to make out, the diagonal view of the mech highlighting the particle cannon on the near side. These seem mostly incidental however when compared with the third and final link coming out of the mech, straight to Numbani. These new mechs are clearly a more advanced and streamlined model than the hulking Sphegator that preceded them. Armed with particle cannons and barrier shields, but in what conceivable way could they be linked to Numbani? What could the City of Harmony have in common with a Russian megacorp? Numbani is a beacon of Omnic and human unity, so maybe this is an attempt to ease the deep-seated animosity Russians have for Omnics as a whole, by demonstrating what can be achieved when working together. Given the fact this is a web built by Sombra, that seems incredibly unlikely, I'm afraid. She is all about the knowledge and power that goes with it, and the cooperation for the great good hardly fits that picture. So it's probably worth looking into Numbani a bit further. Built just after the first Omnic crisis, it was designed to be a utopia for humans and Omnics alike, and appears to be living up to that ideal to this day. The map we have access to gives nothing away that would hint at a nefarious undercurrent in the city. And yet here we are, with it taking an extremely prominent spot in a global conspiracy. Its only ties to a Russian-built war machine. What looks to be another, this time quadrupedal mech that we'll look at shortly, and the heart of the conspiracy itself. Clearly not all is as it seems in Numbani, but with nothing to work with, we're at a loss to push this any further at the moment.
That quadrupedal mech intrigues us for two reasons. Firstly, it does not appear to be a design we've seen before. It's vaguely similar to the four-legged mechs that were present in the first crisis that we've seen in historical images of Overwatch or in flashbacks, but the silhouette does not look the same. The South Korean kaiju Omnic monstrosity that Mecha were built to fight also shares this shape, but surely if it were that we'd see a link to Mecha, who are missing altogether. Is this therefore something new? And if so, why and how did Numbani come into play? Secondly, and this is where we'll be ending this video, is Doomfist. Now we know Doomfist is associated with Numbani, have done ever since the map was first revealed with the gauntlet acting as the payload, and posters of the men that have held the title dotted around the city. The biggest surprise therefore is that his is not a direct link to Numbani, rather it goes through this mysterious mech. We'll leave you to ponder why that may be. Stay tuned for the second part of our look into Sombra's web of conspiracy, where we'll try to answer this as well as look into Talon, Overwatch and the conspiracy as a whole.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Lore Report. What are your thoughts on the web? What are your thoughts on our theories and questions that we pose throughout? And what do you expect to see from Talon and Overwatch? As ever, we greatly appreciate your insight in the comment section below. If you like this episode, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more of what we do, hit subscribe. Until next time, I've been Dante.
And I've been Kers. Thanks for watching.